Good afternoon, cult members, and welcome to the Pop Culture Cult. I'm Sean.
And I'm Josh.
And this is the Rebel Files, your one-stop shop for everything Star Wars, including news, notes, wild speculation, Funko, little baby Kevin, that was announced today, toys. I forgot to tell you about that.
It needed to happen. No, I was watching the post on it, and it's about time. I don't know why they didn't. I don't know why they didn't just pre-plan that was going to be a thing.
At least for Funko, I know they've got to work a few months out to get the molds and everything ready to go. So they've known, but they haven't been giving out a whole lot of stuff because they didn't want stuff to be spoiled. Right. So like Hasbro and Lego were infamous for dropping stuff and giving away spoilers, and so they haven't really been doing a whole lot of stuff. So especially with Sweet Baby Kevin, that we have you have to not let that out. Like you have to wait for the series to come out before you can really like go with it.
I just think it's funny that like the first thing that they led off with, though, when they started talking about the merchandising for, okay, I understand getting the series together, but if you know it's potentially going to be a thing, if anybody has any form of market research, they know it's going to be a thing. So it's like, okay, here's what we're doing. We're going to launch some products, and it's the same image through like a Spreadshirt account of, Baby Yodel, Kevin, whatever you want to call him.
Yeah.
And it's just like that. I'm like, really? Guys, this was not your strong suit in this one. Yeah. So it's at least they're finally, catching up to everything, and they're starting to put stuff out there. So
yeah, I'm not going to be too upset about it because I understand why they wanted to keep it, as secret as possible. That was part of my thing with Rey in the first one. You kind of wanted the mystery of Rey in The Force Awakens. So putting out a bunch of toys about her, people complained about it, and I'm like, I understood it. But now I want all of the things.
Well, and they're even kind of mimicking that philosophy with the stuff that's coming out. Like, if you read like all the character descriptions on the back of the packaging right now, they're about as vague as you can get.
Yeah.
I know. Yeah. So we'll probably see some differentiation as the movie actually gets released.
I'm at least with Baby Yoda, the pop is coming in regular size and then in a 10-inch size, and they said coming soon. Usually when they say coming soon, it's within a couple of weeks. And then the 10-inch one is going to be Target exclusive because they're running all of their 10-inch line right now. Mm-hmm. We were there on Black Friday, and they had a Dio, a Jack from Incredibles 2, Dobby, and they're all the big 10-inch ones. And I'm like, I want this one, and I want this one, and I want this one.
Yeah, as far as Jack, Dobby, and Hedwig from Harry Potter are usually the top three that they tend to keep in rotation.
Yeah. I've had the Hedwig one in my hand a couple of times, and I just have to be – I can't go wild on my pop buying stuff right now because we're in the apartment, and until we move into a 2-bedroom, I can't go crazy. But I'm buying a 10-inch Sweet Baby Kevin. All right, let's get into this week's news and notes. We didn't do a show last week. Unfortunately, I had to go see a friend. We had got some news, and so we decided not to record. And so some of the stuff that we're going to talk about this week is a little bit old, and then some of it's stuff that's been coming out this week, so it's kind of intermixed with each other. And we will do a spoiler discussion about the last episode of The Mandalorian to end with. So the one that came out today is we are getting Star Wars Jedi Temple Challenge. It is a game show for kids. It's Hidden Temple. Is that what it was called?
The Hidden Temple, if I remember right. I'm pretty sure it was Hidden Temple.
It's an obstacle course test thing for kids. It'll be on Disney Plus. But the big thing about that one is the host is going to be Ahmad Best, which is super awesome because having him coming back into the fold of the Star Wars family after really kind of getting shit on by fans for Jar Jar Binks. Jar Jar wasn't his fault. It was George Lucas's fault. And so I'm really happy that he's coming back into the fold. I'm really hoping he's at Celebration next year because that might be one of the few signature pieces that I want. But what do you think about this idea of this Kids Challenge show?
Honestly,
you
cash
care?
grab. Now But you have to have, let's, in all seriousness, let's look at the genres. Everything's cyclical in terms of genres. Star Wars coming back, He-Man's coming
Mhm.
back, She-Ra's coming back, all this type of stuff. Back when we were kids, man, the era of Nickelodeon in its prime, what I would consider the prime era of
Right.
Nickelodeon, things like that. Dude, we watched these. We had these all the time. We had
Oh
Double
yeah.
Dare. We had the Obstacle Candles. There is an audience for this type of stuff, and if Disney's going to come back in and say, okay, well, let's take a concept that people love that recently within the last, I want to say like 3 years, has kind of gotten some press because there was stuff on YouTube that came out about Hidden Temple and all these other theories and stuff. So the premise of Hidden Temple had kind of started being recycled over the last couple of years. So
Right.
Disney's going to come out and say, hey, you know what, Jedi Temple, Hidden Temple, we've already got a format for this. Let's
Right.
spin it. It's new content for Disney Plus. Should be fun. And you know what? Ahmed Best being the guy to kind of to be the MC for the show and be the host of it, he's got a ton of personality.
Yeah. Yeah.
You
That's my
know?
biggest thing about this is that Ahmad is getting he's getting work. I mean, he has been getting work since the prequels,
Yeah.
but he's getting work with Disney, with Star Wars. I really think that's the big story out of all of this. Whatever it is for the kids thing, cool, whatever. We've got American Ninja Warrior, we've got Wipeout, and we got all that kind of
Yeah.
stuff too. So but it's just cool that he got a job. I was watching Attack of the Clones to get kind of, back into the groove of, I'm trying to watch all the movies before we get to Rise of Skywalker. And he's in the bar scene at the beginning when they're chasing the bounty hunter,
Yep.
him and Anthony Daniels. And I'm like,
Daniels.
I totally forgot about that. I totally forgot that you actually get to see their faces in that scene. And so I think it's cool that he gets a job. That's just
Yeah. I don't I never understood the fandom. I mean, you know what? Giving my hate over the whole Jar Jar thing. Let's face it. None of us like Jar Jar. None of us. Okay, not all of it. Most of us. Okay, maybe you did. I wasn't a huge Jar Jar fan. It was. I'll be frank. I wasn't a huge Jar Jar fan. But like hating the actor who portrays the character is the same as hating Warwick Davis for playing Wicket. Nobody
I
liked the Ewoks, but nobody
I
gave Warwick Davis the hate.
my issues with how Kelly Marie Tran has been handled, how Ahmad Best
Yeah.
has been handled, how Jake Lloyd's been handled, like all of them, how a handful of assholes have really affected those people's lives in a negative way really pisses me off because
Yeah.
you can not like a thing, you can not like Last Jedi, but going after Ryan Johnson, personally, not like just saying, hey, I don't like what you did here and why, and talking to them and trying to figure out why they did certain things. Like I have a heart. We're gonna go down a whole different art angle, and I don't want to go down that right now.
Yeah, no.
Let's talk about a couple of books that were announced over the last couple of weeks. The first one is called Queen's Peril. It is a prequel to it is a prequel to Queen's Shadow, which was E.K. Johnson's book about Padme, her stepping down from Queen and then her time getting ready to become a senator for Naboo. And so the Queen's Peril is supposed to be a prequel for her time, for Padme's time as Queen on Naboo. I'm really happy that they're going back and kind of touching these, touching this time period, especially with this character who's beloved but didn't get enough screen time. So I'm really excited about. I've done Queen Shadow. It's a really cool book. Don't know if it's necessary for canon. There's not like a whole bunch of like canon details in there. But the other book I'm really excited about is Thrawn Ascendancy, Chaos Rising, and that is coming from Timothy Zahn.
Yep.
And it is going to be coming out in March, and it's journeys beyond the edge of the map of the unknown reaches, and it's directly about the Chiss Ascendancy. So of these two, I know you're going to pick the Thrawn one, but which of these two are you excited about getting into?
Thrawn. The political stuff doesn't do much for me. I'm so inundated with it. It's an important fact. It's an important thing in the universe because it was a huge factor within the trilogies. Well, I should say trilogies. It was a huge important in the trilogies. But I first off, not just because it's the Thrawn ascendancy thing or the Chiss ascendancy. it's Timothy Zahn really kind of coming back into that fold as an author.
Yeah, yeah,
Because, so here's the author who essentially wrote the trilogy that took place after Return of the Jedi and had all that stuff that he wrote, all that great material, the great stories, and kind of thrown back in the trash. So they go
yeah.
into the Aftermath saga with Chuck Wendig. Chuck Wendig writes the stuff for the Aftermath books. And we hadn't seen a lot of Timothy Zahn. Like, he's done a few things here and there for Star Wars. But this is really like his next kind of foray into a big continuation arc.
Yeah, yeah.
And he's such a great novelist that I'm really stoked to see it come back. And that's actually more of the reason why I'm excited for that book, just as opposed to just the subject matter.
The 3 Thrawn books that he's done so far, Thrawn, it's treason. I can't remember the 3. Anyways, those 3 are really cool. The third one is probably my favorite. Second one's probably my favorite. But anyways, those are very Sherlock Holmes explaining how awesome Thrawn is as a military person and stuff. And although I find it interesting, it got a little repetitive over 3 books. With this, I'm really interested with the idea of showing the Chiss and explaining more of the unknown reaches and what goes on in the Chiss ascendancy and their political building, and like having that kind of super analytical version of the universe and throwing it into, and like throwing little jabs into the known universe of Star Wars. I think that's going to be a really cool thing. And it helps expand beyond what we know, which is kind of what they're going to try to do moving forward anyways.
Yeah.
I'm also excited about Project. Oh my God, I just had the giant
Blue Book. Just
blue.
kidding.
No, it's not Blue Book.
Blue
No.
Book.
Project Luminous. Project Luminous is coming, and it's supposed to change everything that we know about the Star Wars universe, whether it's the Force or whatever. And it's a super duper secret group of novels. Several different authors are working on it. Several different comic book writers are working on it, and they're all connected with each other. And it's supposed to change everything. And that's supposed to come out in the spring too. So there's like a ton of books that are going to come out. They're going to fill our time as we wait for the next set of movies, the next set of shows, and that kind of stuff. So I'm super excited. Talking about excited, we have 17 days till the rise of Skywalker, and we have been inundated with every day a new TV spot. We talked about this was going to happen. We knew it was going to happen. Have you been keeping up on all these TV spots?
I've seen most of them. StarWars.com is very, very. I don't watch a lot of live TV, so StarWars.com has been very, very fluid about putting up some of these spots. And one that I hadn't actually seen circulated, they actually had, which actually ended up becoming my favorite TV spot, had a lot more visuals of the fleet, the starfighter action, everything else. You see, people in Poe's wing smashing into the bases on the Star Destroyers, and it was far more, because a lot of the other previous spots were relatively regurgitated scenes with a couple of small, nondescript, sequences thrown in. But this one really kind of set a different tone for me in terms of how the story is going to go in a lot of the action.
Is that the one where Poe is screaming because an X-wing crashes into they're all kind of running together? Yeah. I know which one you're talking about. Yeah.
That one was like, I was actually watching that one and I was like, okay, that was a good spot.
Yeah.
For me, it set the tone. I was like, oh, this is more of what I'm going to see in some of that. And Palpatine had a different voiceover in it and everything else. So for me, it set a different tone because I've seen all the rest of the footage so much now that I'm like, okay, this one was the first one that kind of gave me a little something new and something to kind of bite into and really look forward to in the movie.
My big thing has been, at least so far, is a lot with these TV spots. They're not really giving away any of the plot. They might, like you're saying, there's a lot of regurgitation of what we've already seen with one or two little things added in, but they're still not giving away too much of the plot. I just at this point in time, 2 weeks out, I just don't feel like I know what this movie's going to be, what it's at least going to be about. And so I'm okay that they're doing all the TV spots because they're really. We've got The Mandalorian out. It's doing all kinds of, good press. It's doing all kinds of good things for Star Wars. And now they're reminding people with these little 20-second things like, hey, oh, by the way, we have a movie coming. We have a movie coming. I just don't want to know about the movie's plot at all. And right now they're doing a great job with that. The other thing that they put out was that retrospective. I don't know. It was like this. This is how we got here over the last 30 years or 40 plus years, and it was behind the scenes shots and shots from the movies, and one of the shots was Warwick Davis in the Wicket outfit trying to grab the Wicket's head and stuff like that. That one was just a tug on the heartstrings. Not really a trailer, just a. Remember how cool all of this was, and it's been really nice to it's really been nice the way they've been working the marketing, getting everybody ready for Mandalorian, and now they have the momentum. They're rolling everybody into Rise of Skywalker, and then they'll roll into all the stuff that we're going to get in the new year with the books and all that kind of stuff. Anything that come out of any poster or anything that's been coming out lately that you're like super excited about before we get into the next story?
The poster, the most recent poster that they've kind of brought out is a little weird. I'm not gonna lie.
Is it the one that came out today?
Did it come out today? This one might have come out this weekend. It's the one where, because I remember reading an article about it yesterday. But it was the one basically where all the Skywalkers, Leia, Kylo, Rey, and Luke are kind of meshed into one. On that, and it's the style design on it's a little odd, comparatively speaking. A little weird, and I know there's debate as to whether or not they're like, oh, it doesn't look like Luke, it looks more like Obi-Wan, which at first glance in the photo kind of does, but if you look at it closely, it's Luke. It was a very odd style choice. Right. That they did for this. So, we can sit there and read into it all we want. Point is, it's a striking poster. It makes you look at it. Would it be one I hang on my wall? Absolutely not. But I do think it draws the eyes and it draws the attention. It makes you go, huh. So kudos to them for that.
Right. My two favorite posters that they've gotten that I actually want is there's one where the Rey's lightsaber, the Skywalker lightsaber, and Kylo's lightsaber are overlaid with each other. Yeah. And they're so they're making it kind of purple color. And then in the background is Palpatine. And it's this really kind of real subtle like playing with the light and the dark, and one side's a little bit more blue, and the other side's a little bit more red. And like I it's a really cool like visual. I didn't realize what I was looking at until I actually brought it up on my computer, because I had first saw it on my phone. I'm like, oh, that's a cool poster. And I'm like, oh wait, no, there's the handles and all that kind of stuff. I thought that was really cool. But my favorite so far of all the posters, the one I want on my wall, is the entire Star Destroyer fleet and one X-wing. Yep, that's my favorite one. Just it encapsulates everything about the Rebel Alliance or the Resistance and the First Order and the Empire and like all that other stuff. And then somebody came in and photoshopped Leroy Jenkins.
Yeah, I did, and it's honestly the funniest thing about that is that's the perfect term for that poster.
I was like, okay, yeah, somebody at Lucasfilm or somebody like that has to do a special run of those posters, just with Leroy Jenkins on there.
That's perfect. But yeah, it's absolutely an exceedingly moving poster. And I mean, when you look at the entire Star Wars kind of saga, there's you have the middle camp who likes just the saga, but you always have the two camps. You have the guys who are very, very into Jedi and things of that nature, and then you have all the cats who are interested in the starfighters and the designs and everything else, and the space combat elements of it. And I think the way their marketing team is working is they're actually putting something kind of out there for everyone. They're putting a poster out for those who are into the Reylo connection. They're putting a poster out there for those who are into the Saga connection. They're putting a poster out there for those who are into the Starfighters. So there's almost a flavor for every little nuance that you have. I mean, I've yet to see an entirely Porg-oriented poster. I'm sure my wife would have it, but they're, for the most part, they're trying to embrace the thing.
I'm thinking through my head, like, I know I've seen something, but I think it was just a fan art thing or whatever. So, let's talk about this before we get into it's a little bit of an older story, but nothing that was officially announced. It's just all rumor mill stuff right now. There's been talk for a while that Kathleen Kennedy is coming to her time, her end of her time with Lucasfilm. Her contract is up in 2022. She re-upped this last fall for 2 more years. We've had announcements of a movie that's coming out in 2022, 2024, and 2026. Everyone thought it was the Benioff and Weiss stuff. They have stepped away because Netflix gave them $500 million. I'd probably walk away too. So there's been a lot of discussion about what's going to happen with the future of Star Wars after the Rise of Skywalker. They're making a big point of saying this is the end of the the Skywalker saga, and so there's been a lot of discussion about what's going to happen after the movie is out and going. The newest rumor is that Kathleen Kennedy is going to usher in a new group to be the new heads of Lucasfilm. And that 3-headed Hydra right now is being discussed as Jon Favreau, Dave Filoni, and Michelle Rira. Is that what
Raywan.
And some of this is wild speculation. There's nothing official from anyone within Lucasfilm, Disney, or anything like that. However, there's a lot of smoke around this story right now. You have what's happening with The Mandalorian, how well it's being received by everyone in the Star Wars lexicon, both casual fan and super fan. You've got a female producer who is directly involved with JJ. She worked for Bad Robot. JJ brought her in. She is doing great work with The Rise of Skywalker, and she worked on Force Awakens. You have Dave Filoni, the heir apparent, the Padawan to Lucas. Is this something you think makes a lot of sense, or is this just internet fodder for people like us who need something to talk about with Star Wars sometimes?
Yeah, I mean, it's in my life and career online, I can honestly state that most of these rumors have a very significant seed of truth from somewhere.
That's very true.
I don't see, realistically, if I had to make the assumption, I don't see Favreau being one of the heads of Lucasfilm. I see him being one of the top producers of it. I think, far as business acumen, legacy go, I think it would lean more towards Filoni and Raywan. And the reason I say that is because she's obviously got the business end of the clout.
Right.
From that side of it. Filoni, obviously, he's the legacy kid. We all bow before the altar of Filoni. We make no qualms about it. No. We love the man for what he does and his passion for the saga. And I think he's done, at the helm of everything he's put his hands on, he's done a fantastic job. We know Kathleen's getting to the end of her tenure. She's been with Star Wars for so long, and she knows she's burned the fandom in some ways. Especially, coming out and making comments online, which is one of the big things that happened last week with the Forbes interview, where she was like, oh, we don't have anything to draw from. We don't have any books or anything. Lady, right. You've been with Star Wars forever. You have a ton to pull from. Yeah. So she's not, I think she's starting to disconnect a little bit. She's been more on the business side as opposed to the passion play of Star Wars. She's disconnected a little bit, and she knows what it is. So She signed on the extra 2-year extension to make sure that she finished out the saga, because it's been kind of her lifelong type of a thing for the most part.
Right.
And at that point in time, episode 9 being done, it is time to kind of pass the torch. So they've established it in business to do that smooth transition, to allow the lead out time and the lead in time. And I do think Favre's kind of the wild card in that mix. Would I be upset? Not necessarily, but
Right.
I think he's got more of an overarching attachment to Disney itself, as opposed to just Lucasfilm, because he's on the Marvel side, he's on the Star Wars side now. So I think it makes sense to have him in a position to do it, but I don't think he's going to be leadership. I think that is going to fall to Filoni and to Ray Wan, if there is legitimacy to that story. I would say at the very least, Filoni is going to be stepping up to the plate in a higher capacity.
I agree.
Yeah.
When this news first came out and Janice and I talked about it, you have the creative person and Filoni, you have the business person and Rewan, and you have the movie maker in Favreau. And that covers all three areas that you need to really continue to make Star Wars films, TV shows, that kind of stuff. You have the story group who can keep like the story, in line with through all the books and all the video games and all the comics and all the shows. But this group will be the three-headed monster that could usher in a new way of consuming Star Wars. It's always been about the movies and sometimes the books and very rarely the comics. Mm-hmm. As many books and comics as there are out there, this new idea, this new world of consumption, where the networks are putting more money into longer storytelling processes, with Marvel with 23 movies or a 10-episode series. You get 10 hours and like all that kind of stuff. You have these three people who understand that concept. They understand the story and they understand how to execute that story. I think that's just a real positive thing to move forward with. Having one person, I really liked what Kathleen Kennedy has done as the head of a filmmaking empire. Mm-hmm. Have I liked all of her decisions? Of course not. But I've liked how she's handled a lot of things. But she is not a super creative producer. She is a business producer. And I think that a little bit part of the reason why a lot of super fans of Star Wars are upset is because they just see it as a business thing and they don't see the creative stuff. That's why Mandalorian is hitting so well, is because they're seeing that creative Star Wars coolness that we all fell in love with being there. And if you have this idea of these three who can run forward with the universe, then people are going to be excited about that. And that's what they need now. So
yeah. And I mean, there's a couple of wild cards in that scenario too. One of which is Kevin Feige. There's a wild card with Kevin Feige in there because while the three-headed Hydra is out there, Kevin Feige still kind of made that leap over to Disney. And in retrospect, he's far more tenured than Favreau. That being stated, we've seen JJ come back now. So JJ's helmed twice. Ray Wan's obviously been affiliated with Bad Robot. Do we potentially see a Disney acquisition of Bad Robot at some point, or bringing them under the umbrella?
So Bad Robot got a deal with Warner Brothers. Bad Robot was not up for sale, but up for production. Mm-hmm. Production contract and stuff. Disney was in that conversation, but ultimately Bad Robot went with Warner Brothers. Once everything with Rise of Skywalker is done, JJ and Bad Robot are going to Warner Brothers, and a lot of the talk recently has been that JJ is going to be a version of Kevin Feige for the DC movie universe, the DC they're calling it DC Universe or something like that. But he wants to do be the kind of the overhead person for the DC part of the world, because he has had a Superman script for about 20 years that he wants to do. And I'm not saying that was the deciding factor for Bad Robot to go to Warner Brothers, but JJ is definitely making it's definitely going that way. He's definitely going to Warner Brothers with Bad Robot. And the thing with Kevin Feige, as much as I'd love to see Kevin take over Star Wars, he just signed on to run all of Marvel. That includes the comics, that includes the TV shows, that includes the movies. Kevin Feige is Stan Lee. He is in charge of everything now at Marvel.
That makes sense.
And so Kevin's a super Star Wars fan, and he wants to do a Star Wars movie, which is why they announced that he was going to produce one, a standalone. But knowing that JJ is going to Warner Brothers, knowing that Kevin is going to stay with Marvel, knowing that Kathleen is leaving, it makes sense that they would start looking at other creative people who have connections to the Disney universe, and that would be Favre, Filoni, Michelle. I'm just going to go with her first name. There's a J in there that doesn't say anything, so it's screwing me up. But I like the idea that they have this three-headed monster, and it gives them more opportunity to kind of not be stretched so thin. I think that's one of the things with Kathleen right now, is that she's stretched a little thin, because she's also working on an Indiana Jones movie. She's also working on there was something else that she was working on. Was it Tron? It wasn't Tron. I can't remember what it was.
We could be so lucky to get another Tron.
I'm not saying it's out of the realm of possibility, but at some point in time, they're going to have to come back around to Tron.
I know they were talking about developing the Willow sequel, and that's going to be a Disney Plus thing, because Kathleen, and that's a Lucasfilm property, yeah. So it would make sense that might be one of the other ones that she's working on as well. Side note for Lucasfilm, they've already had a sequel to Willow, people, in a book. Go read it. It's called Shadow Moon. Yeah. So hopefully they don't throw that away and say we're gonna make our own. Hopefully they at least keep something of that in there. At least I would hope. Anyway.
Anything's possible at this point in time. With Disney Plus, they can do anything they really want, and so we've been watching the shit out of it too. Let's do our little spoiler review of the latest episode of The Mandalorian. You have watched the latest episode, I'm assuming.
8 a.m. Friday morning.
Okay, all right. I was 6:30. Just because of the holiday this last weekend, we just weren't able to. I wasn't able to do a review. We weren't able to get together to do a review, so we're going to do it now. It was called Sanctuary. It was Sweet Baby Kevin. Okay, first off, Baby Yoda hitting the button, and the Mandalorian turned off.
I lost it. I was spilling my coffee and completely just loving every minute of that sequence.
And what has come out of the memes and the gifs that have been coming out of that, and then putting music in, and like how like a bunch of the DJs I love have gone in and added their music to it and stuff. It's so awesome. But this episode, okay, spoiler talk. It's been a week. If you don't have Disney Plus, I'm sorry, but we're going to talk about this because there's no other way to talk about this episode than what we're going to do. So spoiler. This was Seven Samurai.
It was the Kurosawa ode. It was blatantly the Kurosawa ode.
Yeah.
You know, so
as soon as he walked into the cantina and Cara Dune was sitting there, I was like, And then when the villagers showed up, I just turned to Janice because we watched it together on Friday night or Saturday, and I turned to Janice and I'm like, "This is Magnificent Seven. It's Seven Samurai." And she's like, really? I'm like, oh yeah, totally. Like as soon as the villagers showed up, I was
There
like,
wasn't seven of them. There was two.
right.
So,
It
but
was
it was still. And he took, and the brilliant part of it was the fact that it was a little on the nose, maybe not to the younger audiences, but to the older audiences who kind of knew that Lucas had pulled from his inspiration, and some of that his inspiration was
oh
the
yeah.
Kurosawa's films. So it's an ode, it's a love fest. It totally fits right in with the Mandalorian. It was a lot of fun for an episode. And can I get more Cara Dune?
Right. I've been waiting for her to show up, mostly because how Gina Carano has been through the whole, you know, publicity of going out and doing interviews and stuff like that. And she was, I've watched some reviews and have some people talk about, this wasn't. They really had issues with this episode more than they've had before, and I get some of the critiques of the dialogue isn't all that great, and it's kind of stuff that we've already seen, but it's the one critique that I've heard the most that I really have a problem with is that this episode was so different. And you can't just sit there and say this is different because Cara Dune shows up and she's a totally different character within the Star Wars universe. It's been on point with everything else that we've had, and she was so good. As soon as she showed up on screen, you were paying attention to every little thing that she was doing. And there's a photo that Bryce Dallas Howard posted because she directed this episode, and it's the scene when they're telling the villagers that this is what we're going to do to train to make sure that we stop this ATST and all this stuff. And there's all these people in this shot, but you are drawn to Gina Carano's. It's just, I want so much more of her in everything. Like,
yeah,
I just don't know how to.
Gina Carano's been, in the past. Okay, so she's done the Deadpool stuff, and she always got, because she was former MMA, she always got kind of typecast into that gruff, super butch type of a role. Right. And like the thing is, Gina Carano's like a sweetheart, right? If you ever watch interviews with her and things like that, she's absolutely cool. And the fact that she gets to kind of come into the universe and kind of show a different type to her character, far more speaking lines. She actually has a character with depth. Now that's
emotional depth too.
Absolutely.
Like she's trying to find her way in the world after being this. She has PTSD. She doesn't know what she's supposed to be now that this war's over. And it's
yeah.
Go ahead.
No. It's absolutely right. They've actually given her a character that actually has some depth to it, and I want to see that character explored more. I want to see her backstory be fleshed out as part of it, just because I really want to see Gina Carano have a vehicle that's actually, perfect for her acting talents, fits her suitably, and gives her that range of a character that she hasn't really been given before.
Right.
I think this is her time, and it fits right in with the Star Wars universe. Former Rebel Shock Troop. I loved seeing her on screen, and I loved what the character is. I was really sad that they didn't kind of team up at the end, but they left it open for her to be coming back in, and you know it's going to happen. It's going to happen.
I'm getting this feeling that each episode you're going to have, I won't say each episode, but you're going to have these handful of episodes this season that are going to lay the groundwork for when we go into season 2, and it's more of a overall arc instead of each individual episode is like a side mission kind of thing. You're going to have this overall arc, and that's going to, you're going to have Cara Dune come back. You're going to have IG-11 come back. You're going to have the Ugnaught, Nick Nolte, Ugnaught, Quill. You're going to have him come back. Like they're laying the groundwork for all this stuff to happen.
Right.
And I if that is true, I absolutely love what they're doing this season. Like I love.
Yeah, you're getting intro stories to have the team story. The straight out training montage. Okay, it's so Kurosawa and Magnificent Seven. We've already talked about that. Yeah.
The village, the lady in the village, with the daughter who has a thing is open to the idea of keeping the Mandalorian there at the village
Mhm.
is a Western trope. It's it's. But what happened with her in this episode and
Mhm.
the exposition that they had, where she asked him, "When was the last time you had the helmet off?" And he said, "A few days ago." And she said, "With nobody around." And he said, "Well, not since I was 10 or whatever it was." And then she leaves and he takes the helmet off and stays in the little hut or whatever and eats. That to me was the most important thing that happened in this episode. As much as I love Cara Dune and I love them going against the ATST and all the little fun stuff they had with Baby Yoda and the kids and all that kind of stuff, the idea that physically showing him taking off the helmet after explaining to somebody that if I take this helmet off, it means I can never put it back on, is so awesome to me. It's so awesome to me. Now I know what it means for the canon stuff and
Mhm.
Sabine and all. I don't care about any of that stuff. But for this episode, for him to sit there and say, "If I take it off, I can never put it back on again," it is lays so much groundwork in one sentence. It's so well done. I cannot believe how amazing it was.
So I don't want to necessarily say that it throws anything out with Sabine or the canon or anything else. So I realistically, if you
Yeah,
went
what's the
back,
people
yeah,
online have been saying? It changes
they
canon.
they
It
they
did
they need to slow. They need to calm the fuck down.
right.
Um, and the reason for that is a couple of things that we've kind of noticed. And for all of our friends who are Mandos and into Mando stuff, feel free to chime in on this one. Uh, the episode previously where we got into the ward of the Mandalorians. I'm pretty sure at
Yeah.
this point we've established that he is not Mandalorian by blood. He has been adopted into the Mandalorian, and
Yes.
he's been adopted into this particular tribe, not not necessarily all of Mandalore. We do know that the Mandalorians did have different clans, different tribes, things of that nature. So this
Right.
tribes, because he was adopted into it, their rule being obviously more of the militant end of the Mandalorians, would probably have that policy. So because he
Yeah,
was
yeah.
adopted into him, he's got a bond to them. So that's just what I was able to extrapolate. And we didn't talk about the previous episode where he betrayed the bounty hunter guild.
Oh
But
yeah, yeah, yeah.
can I just talk about the towel moment overseeing a group of Mandalorians flying through the air for the first time in live action that we've ever seen,
Oh,
because
oh
because the only time you ever saw that before was Clone Wars and Rebels. But to
right.
see it live
Right.
action, that entire sequence with ah,
It would those those okay, the third episode with what Deborah Chow did with that episode, like and that the the just the them coming out like coming out and showing to the world that there's more than one Mandalorian out there, like that whole sequence, just that idea is so cool. And then you get to see the actual flying of the Mandalorians, with the jetpacks and everything, and then that um uh Iron Patriot moment at the end where he kind
at the
of
end where it goes in
salutes
and
him
does
and
that.
I got to get me one of those. It's like, oh, that's so awesome. And him changing, like getting the upgrades in the armor because he, um, the ice cream machine, data pack ice cream machine
Mhm.
full of the
Yep.
Beskar. I mean, there's so much stuff in that episode, and it just leads into this idea in this one where he's just trying to find a place to be safe, or at least to have Baby Yoda be safe. And then him realizing in this episode when the bounty hunter shows up with the tracking beacon that
Mhm.
he's not really safe anywhere. Like all of the like the, each episode, we've been talking about this with the Watchmen. Each individual episode is a cool, fun, standalone episode, but each episode also builds well, how do they say it? Unravels the string a little bit more to get you to understand more of the whole story.
Well,
And
it's how Doctor Who does the arcs,
yes,
you
yes,
know,
yes,
and it's a
yeah.
formula that works.
A lot of shows over the years have done. The example I always use was Buffy and Angel. Buffy and Angel had cool,
Absolutely.
fun individual episodes, but there was always something inside that episode that had a overall
Yep.
story arc. This particular show with the Mandalorian has shown that each episode is its own thing. However, if you go back and rethink about what they're saying and what they're doing, they're overlaying all of this new information to build to something down the end, and we still haven't gotten Giancarlo Esposito and the Death Troopers, and we're going to episode 5,
Hmm.
and so like we're getting I'm feeling more and more that this season is a build up to what they really want to do next season, especially since they got picked up 4 months before Disney Plus dropped, and they were already filming when Disney Plus dropped this year. So they're looking to
Yep.
drop this next year. And
Yep.
so they have a story they want to tell down there, but they can't get to down there until they do all this other stuff, world building and explaining this culture, which hasn't been really explained to the casual fan. Now, fans like us who've watched Clone Wars, watched Rebels, read a bunch of the books, read a bunch of the comics, we have an idea what's going on before we even walk in the door. But you have to do it to the casual fan. There's 2 shows right now as appointment watching for us, Watchmen and The Mandalorian, and they're both doing exactly the same things. And it's been so cool. However, if something happens this week that happened last week on Watchmen, oh my God.
Well, don't spoil it for me. I have not watched any of the Watchmen episodes, and I actually need to. So
We will talk about Watchmen after the show. But anything else about this last episode or the last 2 episodes that you want to point out before we call it an evening?
nah, just absolutely. I think I think it goes without saying. All of us have been very, very happy with the Mandalorian. All the directors have done a phenomenal job. Fleshing out these individual stories. They've got their own taste. They have their own implementations and their own styles to it. Man, I'm excited, dude. We still haven't seen Bill Burr's character. We still haven't seen Giancarlo Esposito's.
Bill Bird's in this too.
Yeah, there's a lot more stuff to come, and I mean, I think at this point, outside of the Bill Burr and the Giancarlo Esposito sequences, we've pretty much seen everything that was in the trailer for the most part.
Yeah.
So I'm really stoked at what the next few episodes are going to actually bring into the picture.
Yeah.
It's fantastic. It's a perfect filler to lead us into Rise of Skywalker.
Yeah.
So,
I one little thing that's kind of been bugging me a little bit, and I kind of touched on it earlier, is people are so enamored with the Mandalorian that some people are starting to ask the question online: is it taking away from the hype of Rise of Skywalker? And I could understand the thought process, how you can get from A to B,
Sure.
and I totally get that. But I really think that you're going to be so excited about. Everybody was so excited about the Mandalorian, but by the time we get to Rise of Skywalker, we're now 7 episodes into the season. That fervor is not going to be as intense, and the way they're kind of doing these daily TV spot little things and all the interviews, they did that Q&A from Galaxy's Edge yesterday with the cast, which I didn't watch. I don't know if you did, but I didn't get the chance to watch it.
No.
But like, I didn't expect them to say anything when it came out of that. But it's been this slow rollout of the Rise of Skywalker. I just don't think that it's going to pull away from Rise of Skywalker. I think that's just going to enhance it.
No, and really the hype is just there, honestly, because
Right.
we've known Rise of Skywalker's coming. We now have fresh Star Wars content between Fallen Order, Mandalorian. The hype's going to be around those. Why? Because it's instant for us now at this moment.
Yep.
As we get closer to Rise of Skywalker, we're going to shift gears. We're going to go embrace Rise of Skywalker for what it is. We've been waiting, but we can't do much about it. They're not releasing a whole lot. So we're going to enjoy the content we have now.
Yep.
And embrace that.
And then after Rise of Skywalker comes out, we get the new rides at Disney World and Disneyland. The Rise of the Resistance rides, and that stuff is already starting to leak out about some of the stuff that's going on there. And so I'm really thinking that the reason they held off on both of those rides is it's directly connected to Rise of Skywalker. I don't see how it's your most important ride at Galaxy's Edge and not open it when you open Galaxy's Edge unless it's directly involved with the movie.
Yeah, I think there were some last minute shifts with that because they were gearing up originally to have this be a launch ride when they opened Galaxy's Edge. It was originally kind of touted as that, and I think after construction, because the construction was going on for the ride as the park was being built.
Right.
So I think there was, in order for longevity to kind of make it more relevant and more timely, I think they pulled back on a couple of things, and I think they shifted the ride plot and ended up reworking some of the material to kind of tie in with Rise of Skywalker to give the ride a little more longevity over the course. So it makes sense from a business perspective, and everything else. So not upset.
Stop talking about business. This is cool, fun stuff.
Yeah, but at the end of the day, it's we all know it's the ride I'm waiting for. That's the one I want to go ride personally. That's one I'm the most excited about. So we'll get to it. Just waiting for it to open.
We're definitely going to be there in August. So yay, celebration. All right, that's this week's show. What do you guys think? Are you enjoying The Mandalorian? Who do you think should be the new head of Lucasfilm after Kathleen steps down? And what book are you excited about? All of that and more, let us know in the comments. If you have questions for our show, for us, we will please leave them in the comments and let us know. Challenge us. We'll see if we can come up with some kind of BS answer or not, whatever. But if you have any questions, definitely leave them in the comments. Like this video, subscribe to the channel, help us out by following us on all the social media stuff for Pop Culture Cult. All the information is in the description down below. I'm pointing downwards where the description is. And until next time, I'm one with the Force.
And the Force is with us. Take care.